Welcome, Jet fans, to another episode of the Jets Life podcast. A lot of breaking news today. We just found out from Robert Saleh himself that the Jets are going to go ahead and bench Zach Wilson following his performance against the New England Patriots, where he completed under 50% of his passes yet again, and the offense could not muster much outside of 3 points on one field goal drive. Couldn't get first downs in the second half. It was just an utter disaster from an offensive perspective. Defense played their hearts out and limited the Patriots to 3 points in that game. And then obviously we all know the last second punt return for a touchdown sealed the victory for the Patriots. We're now 6-4, and as I just mentioned, Zach Wilson is going to the bench. If you watch Robert Saleh's press conference, it's not envisioned to be a long term benching. He does envision at some point later in the season, Zach will be the starter again. It's intended to be like a mental reset for him. Kind of wish that this mental reset would have happened during the bye week, taking that time to refresh his body, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. But he's going to take what I think is going to be probably a couple weeks to sit on the bench, get refreshed, and hopefully get back by week 14 or so and kind of hit that last 5 or 6 games in stride as we head into a crucial December and hopeful playoff run. So, with that being said, Mike White's been assigned the starter with Joe Flacco as the backup. So Zach will be inactive for this upcoming game against the Bears. And when you got the news that Zach was going to be benched, at first it didn't come out who the backup was going to be, who the starter was going to be for this game. And I personally didn't want to see more of Joe Flacco. I know he's got the veteran presence. He's won a game for us this year. But if you really kind of drill down into what that 3 game stretch was, it was the Baltimore game where we couldn't really muster much on offense. It was the Cleveland game where our running game kind of controlled things, and if it weren't for late game heroics by Joe Flacco, but if it wasn't for that, we'd be 0-2 going into that. And then the Cincinnati game, much of the same. As soon as pressure got in his face, you just knew it was going to be a sack. And he just kind of stood there, took the sack, and in some cases fumbled it. And if you want to say anything about Zach, his turnovers have been limited outside that Patriots game. Um, so, I mean, from a turnovers perspective, I don't want to see Joe Flacco back there. I mean, this is probably his last year with the team, so you know what you're going to get out of Joe Flacco. He's bounced around the league after he left Baltimore, went to Denver. I mean, it's not, it's. I'm not really expecting much out of Joe Flacco if he were the starter, but at least with Mike White, you know that he has the ability to operate this offense. We saw what he did against Cincinnati in one game, that one game start where he set you know jet records. It seemed like first quarterback throw for 400 yards since Vane Testaverde back in 2000. Yeah, was it shot lightning in a bottle? Sure, but at this point in the season, we don't really need you know a top 10 quarterback. Yes, it'd be great. I would love to have a top 10 quarterback right now, but all we need is somebody who can operate the offense, complete over 50% of his passes, get a few first downs. This defense is good enough where they're going to stop teams from scoring points. I mean, they've done it against top-notch opponents like the Bills, and they've done it against the lower end teams like the Patriots, just limiting them in total where the Patriots can do anything. Even the first game against the Patriots scored 22 points. But if you really look at that, 3 of the Zach interceptions put them in field goal range already. You had the one touchdown at to open up the second half, outside the outside the halftime. So I mean, if you take a look at that alone, that's about 16 points that the Jets surrendered just you know out of that other 2 field goals. I mean, this defense is good enough to hold us in games, and if we get a quarterback that can just methodically play the game manager thing, that's what Zach did in the Buffalo game. He was a game manager, and that was what we needed. His completion percentage was high in that game. He was not making mistakes. He was throwing the ball not down the field, but at least vertically, past line of scrimmage. It was it's that's the type of game that we want our quarterbacks to be able to play. And Zach, for whatever reason, against the Patriots, it just wasn't happening. And I personally do agree with this decision. I honestly thought it was going to be a situation where they would send Zach out there for Chicago, who has a lower end defense. They're not the old Chicago Bears of '85, but they're in the bottom half of the league for sure in total defense. So I thought it'd be a good opportunity to give him the start, let him gain us a little bit of confidence. But if he did not, then you bring in Mike White. But the Jets are just look like they're going to go a completely different direction and go with Mike White from the set. What does this benching do for Zach Wilson? For one, it gives him obviously the chance to reset, which is the intention for this front office. But two, if Mike White for whatever reason, if Mike White does turn this into some lengthy starting trajectory, because I mean they do say that they're going to get Zach back as a starter by the end of the season, but I find that hard to believe if Mike White goes out there and balls out. I mean, if he's you know doing fantastic over this time, they're not going to switch starters. I'd be very shocked if Mike White has a great game and they go to Zach next week. I don't really see that being their plan. I think they ride the hot hand, and if Mike White's the hot hand, let him lose his job. If he lost his job last year when he had that horrible game against Buffalo, and the next week I believe it was. Um, I want to say it was the following week that Flacco started, or maybe Zach did start the following week after that. But whatever it was, the Buffalo game was the end for Mike White last year. He lost his job, but he had a a couple of good games. He had the game against Cincy we all know about, but even coming out in the Indianapolis game, I mean, he came out, Indy scored a touchdown, and he came right back and scored a touchdown of his own. And then he injured his wrist on the touchdown pass he threw, so that ended his game. And then his next start, I believe, was the Buffalo game that we just discussed. So again, while I do think the Jets are honest with their approach of eventually bringing Zach back into the huddle as the quarterback, I don't think it's just going to be foregone conclusion that it will happen if Mike White is progressing and playing well for this team. I don't think you disrupt that, especially with what we saw out of Zach. I mean, I think that would definitely do cause some detriment to this team if Mike White's proving that he gives them a chance to win, and Zach, obviously, what we saw against New England. Don't really want that to this team that will divide the locker room. What Saleh did today was exactly what needed to be done. Locker room was, you know, definitely had some disgruntled players in there, especially after Zach's comments. I mean, you don't put up 3 points in a game and play as terribly as you did and say that you feel like you did not, um, you know, let the defense down. That defense balled out. That defense played like they should have won that game, and we should have won that game. The only thing that defense didn't do, which would have changed the game, was have a turnover. Maybe a turnover changes the game, and we end up coming out as victors. But Mac Jones is playing, you know, clean with the football. He was completing his passes, and he was doing what needed to be done. He was controlling the field position, and it just came a point where the field position became too much, and that late punt return where man just like line drived it to try and get it as deep as possible to keep the Patriots out of position to maybe complete a pass and get in range for a field goal. Tried to pin him as deep as possible. Unfortunately, didn't give the coverage team enough time to get down there, and we all know the end of that game. But I mean, I'm fully expecting that this offense is gonna come out in this Bears game and be ready to roll. I mean, there's no reason why. I mean, obviously the Patriots do have a great defense, but there's no reason why with the skill players that we have that we can't, you know, kind of routinely complete a few passes, get a few yards, get a couple first downs, because that's really all that needs to be done. The points will come if you do that, especially the way this defense is playing. Pin the offense back on the other team, and you're going to get them in situations where they're going to try and force a pass. And this defense will make interceptions. They had an interception, and I want to say it was every game this season before the Patriots game, or a turnover every game this season before the Patriots game. Um, Unfortunately, the no interception, no turnover game came in an opportune time where we really needed one. But I'm not going to fault the defense at any point. for what they did. They did their job. They limited an offense in the NFL to 3 points, and unfortunately, the defense they were going against did the same thing. So with that defense and what do I expect out of them in this upcoming game against the Bears? Um, I just expect a lot of the same what we've seen. So the Bears obviously could potentially be without Justin Fields. He's got what's labeled as a separated shoulder. I can't see the Bears in a season like this where it looks like they're heading for a top 10 pick to put their what looks like long term answer at quarterback in harm's way, especially behind that offensive line, which has been playing terrible for him. I think probably give him a game or two to recover, get back at it, and then come back at the second half of the season or last few weeks of the season and finish it up. So the game that we looked at on the you know preseason calendar and said, oh, a fun game of two top 10 picks from a year ago isn't that. It's going to be Mike White versus I don't even know who the Bears backup quarterback is, but I guess we'll find out soon enough. If it isn't Justin Fields, I mean, I don't know too much about the injury problem he's having, but I mean, I feel like if he can play, he will play. But I also do feel like the Bears want to be cautious with their quarterback. So with all that being said, what's to expect in this game coming up? I do expect the Jets to win. I will be there. It's going to be a lot of fun. Haven't been to a Jet game at MetLife in a really long time, so being down in Florida, it's kind of hard to make that commute. And the way the team has been over the past few years, didn't really give me much of a reason to go out there. Team is 6-4 right now, and I'm actually looking forward to it. Um, kind of excited to get out there. Plus, it's going to be Darrell Revis's enshrinement into the Jets Ring of Honor, so I look forward to that presentation at halftime for him. But I expect the Jets defense to just continue to do what they're doing. Um, I can't see the Bears, even with Justin Fields, being able to put up more than 14 points. The biggest question obviously is going to be the offense. How are they going to operate with Mike White? And I do think that Mike White's going to come out there and play like he has nothing to lose because he really does have nothing to lose. This is his chance to prove himself. If not with the Jets, with another team in the offseason. So I do think the Jets are going to come out there with their offense humming. I think they're be able to score some points against the Bears, and I'm predicting about a score of 24 to 10 is what I'll go with. Then the Jets will score a lot of points, and if that happens, what does that mean for Zach going into the following week, where I believe we play Minnesota the following week? If the offense is moving like I think it will, I just don't think that they're gonna put Zach in a situation to start against Minnesota. Uh, you almost think you almost feel like it's better for him to get his first game back on the road instead of hearing that home team boos if he does do something wrong. I think we have Minnesota and then after that Buffalo. I could have the schedule completely off, but I mean, he operated well against Buffalo. Maybe that's a start. If Minnesota game isn't as productive for Mike White, I don't know. I mean, like I said, if Mike White's running a hot hand, I can't see how Saleh pulls the plug and goes back to Zach. I know that's their intention, but I also do think that they're expecting Mike White to hopefully just kind of operate and keep the offense afloat while Zach clears his head. So again, I'm going 24 to 10 on this game and a Jets victory. And honors to Darrell Revis, great career with the Jets, and he comes back at a perfect time where we have two lockdown corners, just like we did back in his day with him and Cromartie. Um, we have our new um, Revis and Cromartie in Sauce and DJ, and even add Michael Carter. They never found that third guy. They tried with Kyle Wilson back in the day, but it didn't work out. But we have our three, so I'm looking forward to the Jets coming out here and getting a victory against the Bears. And good luck to all Jet fans. It's tough when you know when we've been through what we've been through for such a long time, and you know how many quarterbacks have we drafted that failed, and how many times have we drafted a good quarterback that just wasn't around the right pieces. I mean, you can look at Darnold, when we drafted him, it was, it, it was suck for Sam that year, and that was the guy that everyone was looking at and everyone was looking for. Um, he just never had the right people around him. Regressed significantly, and isn't the quarterback that he was in college or that we expected him to be. You look at Chad Pennington, great quarterback for us when he was healthy. We were pretty much guaranteed a playoff spot, but in those years, you had Curtis Martin there. It was a very productive team that fit his strengths: a running game, play action. Guy was a top notch play action quarterback, but that defense let him down too many times in the playoffs. And unfortunately, we had some special teams issues with our kickers missing field goals in crucial games in his career. Vinny Testaverde, we had him. Obviously, we didn't draft him, but brought him in as a free agent after the '98 season. He goes down with an injury, misses a lot of time, and things don't turn around. So I feel like it's like the tale as old as time is the Jets not having their quarterback or not having the quarterback at the right time. You know, it's unfortunate. I'm still rooting for Zach, but the way his first 20 games have gone in his career, I mean, a 55% completion percentage, um, his touchdown interception ratio is, a little bit less than 1 to 1. It's just something that for him to turn his career around, maybe this mental reset is what he needs, but for him to turn his career around would be a lot. um, and I think he's at the point where what the best you can really expect is he cleans himself up and becomes an average quarterback. And then you go from there. I don't know. But the Jets are on a strict timeline right now. They have an elite defense that's, in my opinion, Super Bowl caliber. I mean, the way that they've been playing, yeah, they may have not had their big test, but they had their big test against Buffalo, and I feel like they handled that very well. And they've been doing what they've needed to do against what want to call them backup quarterbacks and third string quarterbacks, and everything they've done throughout the whole year. They've done their job, and with that, we're 6-4 because of our defense. You just can't waste this. This is a little bit of a window we have here, and the quarterback position is crucial for this team, as it is for every other team. To get somebody there that can just operate this offense, it would just be fantastic. I still want it to be Zach, but he has to now prove, just like in the beginning, he needs to prove himself to not only his fans, but his coaching staff and his teammates. I can't go at it enough. His press conference after the game was just horrendous. They need to get that guy some, tutoring on how to handle the press and how to answer questions. I mean, to just answer that question, no, it's just so shocking to me. But obviously, we're now on Wednesday. I'm not gonna dive into that too much more than it already has been. But again, looking forward to this weekend and go Jets.